What you can guarantee with Brentford is that they know exactly what they're doing in the transfer window and they have got every eventuality planned out. But let's not rewrite history. Ivan Toney has scored plenty of goals. But I'm going to show you why Brentford might just be fine without him. First, though, we have to go back. He really has been a focal point of the Brentford attack. Toney scored 34.5% of Brentford's goals in 22-23, behind some big names, only Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. The only problem is this wasn't last season. That's the season before last. And Brentford have had to cope without him because of his ban. So let's take a look at how they've got on over the last year with and without Ivan Toney. Remember, he returned in January for the final 17 games of the season. Brentford won more games, scored more goals per game. They also conceded fewer goals per game, and they had a much higher win percentage and also collected, on average, more points per game as well. So it seems like they've done pretty well. Thomas Frank had to shuffle things around without Toney and finished the season 13 points clear of the bottom three. Staying up was a successful season for Brentford last year. Can they do the same again this time around? It's understood Al Ahly are the team that want to sign him, and they've already made significant signings in the last couple of years as well. Edouard Mendy, Roberto Firmino, Riyad Mahrez and Franck Kessié as well could all be new teammates for the striker. We know that Ivan Toney has been a man in demand, and he gave a round of interviews in January saying he wanted to win titles and wanted to be competing at the very top of the table. So where does this leave him now?
Well, exactly. So, I mean, look, he could join some good players in Saudi Arabia, no doubt. But surely there's a Premier League club out there that would want to sign Ivan Toney.
Well, if we turn the clocks back to sort of a year ago, that conversation was very much at the forefront. Arsenal really linked to him. That didn't materialise, of course, and you're looking at other Premier League teams, but it leaves them in limbo because we did hear there from Paul Gilmore in terms of the valuation hasn't been met and he's got a year left on his contract. So we're not privy to know exactly what that bid was and why it was turned down. But maybe that's what's putting off a lot of Premier League clubs as it stands. I mean, if you're looking at the window drawing to a close, you're maybe predicting Premier League clubs could come in a few days before the end of the window and test Brentford's resolve. They know that he's only got a year left and Brentford need to sell Ivan Toney. But if we just go through some of the traditional top six sides, as you say, I mean, let's start at Arsenal. Second top scorers in the league last year, conceded the fewest goals.
A lot of people say they need a striker.
Absolutely. Some people, depending on your opinion on Arsenal, some people say they'll be absolutely fine without one. They need to tweak in other areas. Other Arsenal fans will say absolutely, but maybe Toney's not the answer. But for me, definitely would help Arsenal be a stronger outfit, a good alternative to Kai Havertz through the middle, or Jesus, completely different to both of those two players. But Mikel Arteta seems to have almost certainly gone in a different direction. If you're looking at Spurs, they've just had a huge outlay on Dominic Solanke. There was in pounds there, so that's what Ange's preference is and how he wants to play. At Liverpool, I don't think there's much point even discussing that with Jota and Darwin Núñez not even getting a look in at the minute. Manchester United have opted for younger profiles. They're going in a completely different direction and also the price point as well. Newcastle, fairly settled with Alexander Isak. Yes, in terms of Callum Wilson, there's injury concerns there, but Ivan Toney's going to want to go to another. Going to be the main man, and the clubs that we've just discussed there, it's not going to happen. So it leaves Ivan with very few options, and whilst we don't know what the valuation is that needs to be met, also limits his options too.
Yeah, but then if you're Ivan Toney and you go to Saudi Arabia, is it not a little bit early in your career? Are you not then potentially cutting short your career at the top level of club football?
It'd be a really big decision for him to make. I think it's important to state that there are clubs interested in signing Ivan Toney, but they'd be more interested in signing him for free next summer. Dave spoke about some of the quotes in many interviews he's given, speaking about his ambition to challenge for titles. But with Brentford wanting such a significant fee this summer, with Ivan Toney's wage demands and with Ivan Toney wanting to fight for titles, it leaves you with very few options that can match his ambitions and match what Brentford want in this transfer window. So with that in mind, the Saudi Pro League becomes potentially the only avenue in this transfer window. His argument may be, I can spend another year at Brentford. I can't be sold against my will. Play another year at Brentford, score plenty more goals, keep Brentford in the top flight, and then leave for free next summer. Clearly, Brentford may not want that to be the case because a player they bought for £5.5 million, they want to make some profit on him if he's not going to sign a new contract at the club. Fascinating situation he's in. Maybe he may think this may be the best option and then next summer assess his options again. Of course, there is the tax implications if he's to come back from Saudi Arabia early if he goes there. But at this point in his career, that could be the only option in this window because, as Flex has really well pointed out, in terms of top 6 clubs, there doesn't feel like there's any avenue in this window. It seems unlikely unless Arsenal could get a really cut price fee at the end of the transfer window, whether they'd be interested or not.
Well, give his agent some hope. Come on, how about around Europe?
I think around Europe's difficult because I think you look at, say, Germany, they wouldn't be able to put that kind of money on the table. Harry Kane, I've heard, is pretty good, so I think Bayern are all right for a centre-forward. Spain as well. But I think what's interesting is just the point that Jones made, actually, about Brentford want to make a big profit on him. Well, they can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh, we want to make a profit, but you set it at a level where clubs aren't going to come in.
Yeah.
And then you can't moan a year later when he leaves on a free because you priced him out of a move. So you've got to be really... That's not me having a dig at Brentford, but I just think in general, clubs do have to be quite careful with that because players are very, very aware of the power they have now once you get towards that final year of your contract. And so, you know, around Europe, just to go back to your question, clubs are being very risk averse. They're not spending enormous amounts of money unless, you know, Bayern can do that, for example. Not many others can. And you look, there's a handful of clubs around Europe. PSG, Gonzalo Ramos has just been injured. They seem to be looking at other options. I will talk about those later. But I think clubs are being very careful.
OK. All right. Well, stay tuned because it's going to be very interesting to see what happens to Ivan Toney over the next few days.